Hello once again everyone, and welcome back to the Zettel, and today is actually going to be the penultimate episode for, I guess, season 1, right? The meisterhau, essentially, in the stuff you should know section, where I'm going, once again, by Eric, who's about to run off on vacation, so I'll be recording by myself next time. But this is going to be completing the Schaitelhau, where now we're going to talk about what we do to build upon it. So, when we last left off, we had our basic strong cut to the head, and we had just introduced the idea of relaxing it and also when to throw it. Now, the whole point of the Schaitelhau is that it forces him to have to cover one spot, the top of his head. And we also discussed how really he only has two options to do so. We will first go through the option that is not ideal, that people will do, and then we'll go into the option that is ideal and explain why. So firstly, he goes down to the guard of Alber. Of course, we talked about the various instances that could lead us here, but today we're going to do it in isolation. So he's down in Alber, and I'm passing my Schaitelhau. The very first thing we're going to talk about is the idea of a hanging parry, such as a bogan. This is one of the defenses that people will do. If I cut just a normal cut, for example, I'll just do an overhau, Eric does a bogan, that's not hard for him to step out of, and then he can deliver a cut. It's a thing a lot of people figure out very quickly. It's actually one of those universal sword things. Pretty much every sword system in the world has this action. Now, Schaitelhau kills this very easily. And the reason for that is because, number one, I am not doing a through cut with the Scheitel. I am not going all the way down, which gives him energy and also frees him of my sword, even if he doesn't step out far enough. I am cutting to his head and only to his head, which ensures that at the very least, when I throw this cut, I'm still on his sword. If he wants to cut around, I feel that. And if we're talking about sharks, I will actually bind in almost every single time. Now, that by itself is good, but along with it is that relaxation. Now, you don't want to stop your cut to tumble over. The idea being, just like we talked about last time, just hold for now, is I'm cutting strongly, and then I am cutting and relaxing to give that tip just a little bit of energy. When I do this against his hanging parry, it leads to me hitting him over his guard, without much difficulty, honestly. Now again, this is not going to be necessarily a fight. Could it be? Sure. You know, I don't want to get hit in the top of the head with this. But I give him a nice bloom, which pauses his motion. He's been struck. It's certainly going to ring his bell a little bit. And I still get the benefit of being on his sword. So certainly if we're fighting in friendly context, boom, he's bleeding, I win. But two, I hit his head, I stay on him. He tries to cut around, I'm already one up, I just got to defend against what he's throwing next. Let's switch sides and show that again. So just for reference on this side, I'll just throw one strong Schaitelhau, but without the relaxation. Boom. And we'll go ahead and have you do the parry. So I'm on it still, which gives me plenty of time to feel it and set up my counter. Now I do the relaxation as it's about to hit. No problem. It also allows me to stay on him pretty well, and I'll point out, we'll get to this again in a second, but there is a nice hand slice opportunity here too. But we'll get to that after we learn. So, this won't do. He cannot manage to escape with a hanging parry, so what is his other option? His other option, the smart one, is to go into Kron, which is the crown. Now the idea behind Kron is that you are putting your hands basically at two angles from each other, and generally speaking, since we were already right foot forward, you'll either do it in place, or, as we'll get to in a second, you'll step into it with your left foot. We'll get back to that. But for now, at least, we'll just do it in place so the distance remains the same. Now, contrary to what you might expect, you don't always necessarily want to catch this on the cross guard itself. And for this, let's have you throw the cut at me real quick. So, I can, he throws that cut, I catch it right in the middle. That certainly works, but I'll point out that by nature of doing that, my sword is very far to the side, and I'm catching it on a relatively small bit of sometimes mild steel. I don't like putting my faith in just that piece. Will it happen? Absolutely. Do I want it to happen? Not necessarily. So make your Kron relatively sheer. Not super sheer, just about a nice 45, and odds are you will catch them further out on your strong. In this case, I will probably catch it on my schilt a couple times, which is good because that means there's more time for that sword to bite in, giving me a better chance at stopping it. There we go, right on the money. This is now much further away, giving me more opportunity to do things, including, for example, the Kron Hau, which is not part of the KDF yet, but is one of my favorite cuts I'll cover sometime in the future. So, that is what he must do, because that's the safest way to defend yourself. If something is coming strong toward your head and you are low, your best bet is to go ahead and catch strongly in front of you. Again, we'll talk about other options in a second, because this is the best way to stop it. Now, switching back to our original roles, I don't really need to worry all that much, because my relaxation still has a chance of getting over. Now, I'll point out, this is where things get tricky. One, it's easy when you're doing drill to have people do super high Krons because they don't want to get hit, and that makes your relaxation pointless. If Eric does a Kron that he knows is safe even from me relaxing my hands, this looks pretty stupid, right? Don't get me wrong, we look like one of the images, but he knows how high he needs to get. But when you're actually sparring, do you know how high you need to get? That can vary. And furthermore, the longer I take to relax and focus more on just that straight shot to the top of his head, the better the chance that he makes a quick cover rather than getting that good cover, in particular if he doesn't move his feet. So a lot of times when you're throwing this against people, test their Kron, right? See if they actually hit it high enough to defend themselves, or if perhaps they were a little bit too gung-ho about raising it in drill. And in particular with the next option we'll get to, this is easy to go around. Now, assuming he does stop me, and my sword stops on his sword, let's switch sides for this. The Kron is wonderful in that it just directly builds off itself. I throw cut, he doesn't move, he does. I throw cut, he does a strong parry, my relaxation might get over. I throw cut, I do relaxation against his strong parry, it doesn't hit, or it only hits lightly, because again, and I'll talk about this next week, just because I hit him doesn't mean I then don't want to stab him. So, I throw my cut, and for sake of Eric will catch it. We're here. I am going to turn my left hand upwards in order to thrust at his chest. Not his face, his chest. Now, the way you do this, you've got three options essentially. Option number one, the simplest, is basically just the wind, but in place. So all I'm doing is just holding up just my left hand. Go ahead and hold your Kron a little higher. There we go. Here, so that way it turns all the way down to his chest, and I get that nice strong thrust into it. That's just same as we always do, so it'd be exactly the same as though you were doing this, but rather than me putting pressure to the outside, I just turn it over itself, inverting. And the more light you can make this, the better. Here's that again. I throw my cut. Nice and strong. Now the reason I'm going for the chest instead of the face is because faces can move. We've all had a close wind or do clear in that we've dodged through luck or skill. Chest is where you want to be sticking. It's a much surer shot, and if he wants to get rid of it, he will have to hold his hands well to the side. So this is a good place for me to go. It also ensures that, honestly, it's setting me up for my next thing, but we'll get to that again in a minute. Now, that's option one. Option two is where we do funky hand things. So, I throw my cut down, boom. Oh, and I should clarify, you could also go the other way, so I could haul my hands to the other side and do this number. That works too. I don't like that one as much because it brings my head closer to his hands, so I almost always then have to do some form of grab. It's fine, but I like the other one better. Anyway, doing funky hand things. The first option is to reverse the backhand. So I throw my cut, boom, and now when I hold my hands up, I'm going to just relax my hand and let the pommel just end up in the meat of it. My right hand still turns over as it did before. That gives me a nice strong thrust. I'm practically stabbing him like it's a dagger, and it's way taller. I can get this over pretty much anyone's Kron. I know I'm tall, but I found that this just hauls further because you're pushing rather than trying to lift the other way. So here's that again. I throw my cut, up, nice and strong. The third way is you can reverse your right hand. This one's rarer, but can be very nice if you're going to stick in it for a minute. So I throw my cut, boom, and now when I relax, I'm going to open my hand, keeping my thumb on top, lift, and then I just step up nice and tight, and that gives me one of the strongest stabs you can get. You can even, in theory, reverse both hands. I like to just reverse one or the other. This one is particularly good if you're fighting someone in partial armor, or alternatively, if you really, really, really want to get close afterwards and stab it dead. Here's that one more time. I throw my cut, up, in. Nice and strong like. The final option is he lifts his hand so high in response to me doing my relaxation that I end up thrusting between his hands. That's just a small zucken and pull back. We'll talk more about zucken when we get to it, but I'll just show one briefly. So I throw my cut, he's very high on this. back. Pretty standard stuff, just like in the stuff you should know section. If you don't remember that, go back and watch it. He who fences high is shamed below. Now, our next progressive thing is killing the Kron via slicing the hands. Now this in isolation can be two things. Option number one is I cut him and we're in drill and Eric's like, ha ha ha, you're not going to hit me, and he holds it to the highest degree possible. Stagnant. So, I throw my Scheitel and he is just not happening. There's no point in staying here. As soon as you realize your Scheitel's not going to have anything, just drag your hilt down to your left side, push those hands out of the way, and then a nice bloom to the top of the head. Because he's staying stagnant, I end up moving more than him, but this is pretty easy to do. Here's that again. Now the reason that I am doing a slice instead of just cutting his hands, and this is another big thing for slices, I can absolutely just lay through his hands, and maybe they'll come off, who knows, right? His sword is still up there, and it doesn't take both hands to bring a sword down. If I just cut, my sword will end up down here, and he now gets the Schaitelhau. And it doesn't have to be a great cut to kill me. A press, on the other hand, guarantees his sword will be down out of the way under my control, and I can take my time hitting his head or not. The way you get this slice to be good is to place, then push, rather than try to rush it. So again, I'll do this slower this time. Cut, drag, place. Then as you use your left foot, push the tip over and down. Then I like to step back and get that nice bloom to the head, just like Master Bertel shamed Master Zettel. Now, that in isolation is great, and now you can deal with those people who hold their Krons too high. However, let's talk about what he should do, and let's recite this. If you're going to do Kron, you have two things you can do out of it. There's the Kronhau, which for now we are omitting, and then there is all of the close play. And this is something that's going to be very familiar for those who double dip into Fiore, but essentially, me just standing here and receiving a cut is never a good idea. While yes, we are doing the slice as what is recommended, he can also just do any number of cuts to me, and I will take a wound. There's not much I can do. So instead, if I am forced to do Kron against an incoming cut, I will advance my left foot into it. This also ensures that even if I do have to catch it closer to my crossguard, I'm catching it closer to his origin of cut. He doesn't get the opportunity to relax over anymore because I'm too tight to his hands. It also doesn't come down with near as much force because I'm closer to its origin. From here I can do any number of closing plays, including just a simple little tight stroke if I want. So the left foot coming forward really is your best bet. This is what leads often to needing to do the slice to the hands. So we'll do it from this side now. We'll do this first one slowly. I throw my cut and Eric is stepping up into it. So as I throw my Scheitel down, I see that he is approaching. Now two things. Don't immediately give up. Throw that Scheitel and give him something that he has to hold on to, because from here on out, if Eric wants to either grab my hands, grab my sword, or just shuck and hit me, he needs to know where my sword is. If it goes away, he's better off backing off and defending himself. So, the more force I can give it still, I test his Kron, I test his resolve, and I'm also buying myself time. When this cut lands with force, his stepping into it pushes it up, which also means that he's helping me get free of his Kron. I basically get this wave effect. All I need to do now is keep my good distance. There are two ways you can do this. If you're savvy, you can do a small retreat. If you need to, you can do a pass backward. Either way though, you want to use the power of your core to turn, so don't try to do the slice right foot forward. If I do the quick retreat, I'll then be stepping up with my slice. But this allows me to push his hands over in the exact same way. So boom, here, down, and now I get the choice of I could go back in for his head, or I can just leave since he was trying to close in with me, but now he has wounded hands. I wonder if he'll do it the next time. And sometimes just getting a wound, or just getting away, is more than enough. For example, I have had this happen, in fact, with my students doing this. They've realized that I am going around for the slice. They'll pull back and guard their hands instead, and I'm free and clear. That's still a victory, because I'm not dead. So again, I throw the cut, here, down, and then I can leave. Let's do one regular speed. And again, the cautious thing you got to look out for is making sure you get that place, then push. That one was on the border of ideal, I'll point out. I got it there, but I got it there a little bit too cut-like, so I didn't get as nice of a slice as the other ones that I got. The more of a place you get, the more of your sword you get over their arms, the better you get the push. But I guess let's show it on the inside real quick, and then we shall be done. There we go. That was a nice one, so I'll go back in on that. The other thing that's nice about this, I will point out when they're stepping forward their left foot, is you notice Eric ends up in this guard that doesn't exist. Very hard to fight from here. So, either way, thank you very much, Eric. And thank you all very much for watching. If you've been following the Zettel since the very beginning, that brings us to the end of all 5 of our meisterhau, plus the bonus stuff you should know. I am really looking forward to kind of bringing this full circle. This is not the end of the series. Next week I will do a kind of a so what did all these meisterhau teach you, and going back to the stuff you should know to kind of reinforce some lessons, because it can seem like just a mess of techniques, but if you look at kind of the through line, the commonalities, and then some footwork approaches, which we'll have a fun discussion about that, this all starts to become a lot more, oh, just do the thing you already knew how to do. It's pretty easy decision making and leads to a very tight little toolbox. And then afterwards, we'll get into the further techniques that are in the Zettel, but I might take a slight break for it before I go into that. Either way though, once again, thank you very, very much for watching. We will go over some other techniques another time.